Bami, nobody mari Bami gunita gunur, nobody mari nura nura gul. I'd like to acknowledge country, and or exact translation is hello from whatever camp you come from. Big love to Bayemi and Gunita Kun, Mother Earth, and our creator spirit in the sky, and also big love to all the camps that you're all on today. So that's Nura Nura Cool. My name's Stu. For those of you who don't know me, I am a very humbled Darug and Gubby Gubby man. And my heritage range comes from the Sydney area and also in Gympie in Queensland, and also in the spirit of reconciliation and in respect to my mother, who put so much effort into raising me. I'm also a First Fleet man from England, so we came over for stealing a handkerchief. So a little bit about my heritage. I have the honour of being the chair for today's meeting, and so I'll introduce our panelists. So if you can give us a wave. I can't see Matt on my screen, but we'll start with Amy. And just a little bit about Amy. Amy's a proud Yui woman who grew up and currently lives on Darkinjung country. Amy is a social worker and currently a child, youth and family worker with the Connect team on the Central Coast and Lake Macquarie. Amy's passion is to ensure that all humans have access to quality care, whether that is mental health, access to medical care, or community care, and feel connected and part of the community. She believes that all humans have the inherent worth and deserve to be treated fairly, equally, and with respect. Amy is extremely passionate about advocating for First Nations people to ensure they receive the same access, treatment, and opportunities as everyone else. Welcome, Amy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, next I'll introduce Jack. Give Jack around, give us a wave.
Yeah, I'm here.
Deadly shirt on there.
Yeah.
Jack is a young and proud Gamilaroi man that has grown up on Gumbengi country for most of the duration of his life. Loves sports such as footy and Thai boxing, while he also loves spending most of his time at the beach, as we heard earlier. Can't blame you, especially up there in Gumbengi country or Nura. It's pretty beautiful beaches up there. Jack's passion has been to learn as much as he can about his rich culture. Jack has completed a diploma in community services and has a background in disability support work with adults, but has always wanted to help our next generation of youth and families that need it most. Jack strongly feels as though he's found his calling working for Interrelate. How long you been with us, Jack? A few months?
Yep, just a couple of months now. I'm loving it.
I've been here 7 years and that hasn't changed for me either. So I'm hoping you feel the same way after 7 years, my brother.
Yeah, me too.
Next we have Matty. Is Matt about? Can you say hello for us, Matt? Just so.
Hey, mate.
Oh, there he is. How are you, Matty?
Good, mate. It's Monday. Living the dream.
I'm with you there. What a great way to kick off Monday as well.
Absolutely.
So Matt is one of our practice leads in the Northern region. Matt's come from managing a non-for-profit charity, delivering workplace, domestic and family violence training across Australia. Prior to this, Matt was practicing social work. We have so many social workers on the panel. We're going to have to change that next year.
His profession. What are you talking about, Stu?
Maybe I just need to join the ranks and do it.
Yeah, that's right. You need to cross over.
Yeah. Matt was a social worker working with clients from a diverse range of backgrounds, had the privilege to engage with and support people who have experienced violence, people who use violence, and young people who have been impacted by domestic and family violence. Really important area of work. Matt also practiced and trained in drug and alcohol programs, suicide intervention strategies, and marriage counselling. Matt has engaged with men's yarning circles and running camps for at-risk Indigenous Australian boys. He's deeply passionate about working alongside Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as professionals, families, and community members. He is also a husband and father of 2 kids, and is dedicated to make a difference in the organisation and his local community. Welcome, Matty.
Thanks, Stu.
And last but not least, we have our fearless leader, Patricia, is joining us. So Patricia is a CEO of Interrelate. If you didn't know that, you must be under a rock. Patricia is also a social worker and basically has come from working in Queensland for government and has now, or last 7 years, taken over Interrelate and led us into this wonderful COVID space. You've done that well, I believe, boss. But also is really, really passionate about Aboriginal services. And I believe that's due to her own struggles from growing up, from the background that she's grown up from, and has really proven, in my eyes, what it's like to actually come from grassroots and push through into newer heights. Is that all right to say, Loz?
Thank you, Stu.
No worries. All right. Shall we get straight into it?
Do it.
Let's do it. Awesome. So I think the most prominent question, probably the easiest one to ask, and we'll start with you, Amy, if that's all right, is what's NAIDOC mean to you?
Yeah, mine's similar to Jack's. Like NAIDOC for me is a chance for me to connect with community, because we do usually down here on the coast, we do a massive day of celebration, and that's usually the biggest day of the year for us. And so it's a chance to connect with community again and see aunties and uncles that I haven't seen for ages. It's also a chance, I think, for us to show the nation the importance of culture and community, and to also the continuation of culture and community for our kids. Yeah, so I think it's, yeah, that's what NAIDOC is for me. Just, yeah, super special time of year.
Lovely, thank you. Just before we go any further, can someone hit record for me?
We are.
Oh, we are. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Amy. I think it's so important that we have those opportunities and that we really get to find those little places of celebration for ourselves. And I love how much work you guys do on the coast. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Patricia, do you want to go next? What do you think NAIDOC is for you?
For me, it is a celebration, Stu, and it's an opportunity to learn, and it's an opportunity for Australia to acknowledge its significant culture. It's interesting. I migrated to Australia in 1976. I did my social work degree in 1992 when I was only 5 years old, clearly. And one of the things was that in my education, even though I came to Australia when I was 8, and oh no, I've given it away. And I never got education about Aboriginal culture, you know, and even doing my social work degree, I remember being interested and being told, no, that's not your area of business. You know, you can't possibly know how to work with Aboriginal people. You can't possibly understand. And it always frustrated me because I always saw that that was an area that I wanted to understand. I knew how important my heritage was, and I couldn't understand why the heritage of Australia was so poorly understood. And so to see that now being celebrated, to see language, to see culture, to see, you know, the depth of the education, and that being provided to the next generations of Australians is it's beautiful. There's no other word to describe it. And I want my grandchildren to understand the heritage of this country. I don't have any yet, but that's what they're going to be embedded in. And so NAIDOC, for me, is about embedding that culture and that understanding for everyone.
And I think realistically, when you talk about the Australia that you first came across as obviously a 2-year-old, and
Yes.
But as an 8-year-old, do you think the Australia that you see now is very different when you talk about those experiences?
Yes, but it's not enough. So a few years ago, I went to New Zealand and I experienced how the Maori culture is embedded and recognized, and it sort of surrounds, at least the places I went to, it was very prominently recognized, not just as a tokenistic thing, but inherently connected to the place, to everything that you experienced. And that's where I want to see, you know, Aboriginal culture in Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait culture in Australia get to, where kids in our schools are taught language and culture. And it's something that every child gets to experience, not just Aboriginal children, you know. I know how much my culture meant to me. So for me, you know, I left my culture in 1976, but I had opportunity to embrace it through, you know, my parents were involved in a social club and we could experience dance and music and drums and candombe, all the things that are what makes us, our food, you know. And I know how important that was as part of my growing up, even though I got smidgens of it. But for Australia, this is our culture, you know, and we need to feel it. We need to be part of it, and it needs to be part of our daily life, not 1 week a year.
I totally agree. My my cousin lives in New Zealand, and her children are Pakeha. They're from Australia originally, and they go to preschool and learn language in preschool. You know, like they're taught songs in language. It's just a whole other world. And you're right. We've come so far, but we still have so far to go.
Yeah.
Thanks for that reflection. Maddie, we've heard from Jack already, so I will ask another question of you in a minute, Jack. But Maddie, what's NAIDOC for you, my brother?
Thanks, Stu. I know we bypassed this a little bit for me, and I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm got my feet currently on Bundjalung country of the Widjabul people, and just loving that right now. Literally wanted to go outside and put my bare feet on the ground to talk about this too. So I do want to acknowledge that I feel very privileged to be here too, Stu, and to be asked by you, and in some respects feel out of place in having the conversation even, but really appreciate the opportunity. I think for me, it's a real celebration. Like, I think everyone has kind of summarized beautifully what it means. And sitting personally and professionally thinking about how can we do more, really, and how can we extend what we're doing in the organisation to be more inclusive, to be more supportive, and to be on tap rather than not on top. And I'm really conscious of being a white father in that context and going, not empowering, but actually working with, what's the direction, where does this look like, where are we going, and how do we support that for you? So and together with us. So I think for my personal life too, really wanting to, I've only been in the northern district for a couple of years and was a lot more connected in where I was living in Brisbane. So really looking forward to getting to know that more and getting more connected in this community too. So for me, it's a celebration, but also a reflection of how do we keep driving this and keep celebrating so the culture stays strong.
I think that's a huge reflection. I think you used some wonderful words there, and around, you know, being part of, but not the owner of, and driving together. And I think we do know that First Nations people are the experts of what they need in their lives and in their communities, but we often don't always reflect on the wisdom that can be brought by our non-Indigenous brothers and sisters as well. You know, for me, I constantly reflect on my mother, and she's I won't say this to her, but she's such a wise woman. Sorry. But her ability to assist myself to not grow up with weapons or hit people with my culture, rather than to share and to bring them in as part of it and to learn from them has been one of my greatest strengths. And it's something that my mum really instilled in me, and Patricia actually often operates in a very similar way with me and enables that wisdom and that guidance. You know, Aboriginal services, I think, would have gone a very different way in this organisation if I had my way originally. But there was some gentle guidance from our leadership, Patricia and Matt Stubbs at the time as well, and now Sharon and other people, but that guided us in a way that has really permeated Aboriginal services throughout the organisation. And I truly find that's the way we need to go. So just that gentle guidance that we can also get from our non-Indigenous brothers and sisters is so important. So thanks so much for the reflection, Maddie.
No worries, mate.
All right, Jack, you ready for the hard question?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're right, brother. I'm stirring you up.
Yeah.
What's always was, always will be mean to you? What do you think this theme means for our people and for you personally as well?
I think it is really about recognising the truth of Australia's past and to acknowledge the country's culture and heritage. That's a big one. And it really speaks for itself. Like, to me anyways, always was, always will be. That says it there, you know what I mean? Like, that's when us fellas say that. I feel like we've been here for a long time and we're going to be here for a long time after. Like, yeah, they're just really strong words to me. And I feel like knowledge is the key. So yeah, like you said, even non-Indigenous, like, knowledge from us putting it out there can help us move forward in a way, instead of holding it all in. We all live on this same country now. So I feel like if we all have knowledge around our land and the culture, we can push forward.
100%. Do you ever think they're uncomfortable words for people to hear? Always was, always will be. Do you think there's some points of friction when that's said, and how do you feel? And I'm going to throw this to the panel after Jack answers, because I'd really love to hear your perspective on it. Let's get a bit of conversation happening between us as well. But do you think it's some tough words for people to swallow sometimes?
Yeah, definitely. It is straightforward. But I think that's what we're so used to. Like, definitely from our past, we've had a rough past. So I just think it means a lot, definitely, to Aboriginal people, but it should mean a lot to non-Indigenous also. And to me, it doesn't mean like this is ours, like it's not yours. Like it's not like that. We're all in this together. That's what it means. Like, that's what I feel like it means anyways.
Good work, brother. I love that. Does anyone else want to weigh in on those points of view?
I love the word that Jack used as truth, because that resonates with me. And I think people who see it as a threat, and I might offend some people here, but I think it only comes from ignorance. Because if you embrace culture, if you embrace the truth, then it shouldn't be a threat. It should be about acknowledgement. And I think that some of the arguments that politicians put forward, and now I'm getting political, is about creating a threat response from community. And we've got to get over that.
Mm.
We've got to go down to the point of acknowledging, embracing, loving, you know, what is our heritage, what is the Australian heritage, and acknowledge that truth. And if you do that, then there is no threat. That's my perspective.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. I was just
Nah, get into it.
Get into it, all right. And I think always will be for me is also like, I hope, continuation of reconciliation between First Nations people and the wider Australian nation as well. Because I think, you know, reconciliation a lot for me is about acknowledgement that, you know what, like there was some pretty hardcore stuff that happened in the past, and there's a lot of hurt and trauma, and you know, and a lot of Aboriginal people today are the result of that trauma and that intergenerational trauma, the stolen generation. So I hope that always will be can help for us to unify more as well, and to really for Australia to acknowledge, like, this is Aboriginal land and it always will be and it always was. And I feel like through that acknowledgement and hopefully unification, that we can further progress to reconciliation.
Well put, Amy. Maddie, how about you? Do you have anything to add?
I think it's great. And I mean, I probably wanted to pick up what you were saying, Stu, about that friction. I think friction can be a great opportunity for learning. And often it actually, that whole idea of being uncomfortable is a great position for us to reflect on, why am I feeling uncomfortable? You know, what's going on for me? And I think that we often pander to, let's keep everyone calm and feeling safe and relaxed. But actually, let's explore that a little bit. Why are you feeling uncomfortable? What makes you feel uncomfortable? Where's the thinking behind that? Or where are your beliefs or values coming from that you're feeling really uncomfortable around that space? Or what are the questions or concerns you have there? And we're seeing, I think, an idea of that it's not okay to feel uncomfortable in that space, but I think it's how do we open that conversation up and have it in a way that it's all together. Yeah. And that's where we'll learn and grow, you know, and what does that all mean? But I think it's a great opportunity to start a dialogue with people about what it means and what it's about, and why we're having the conversation in the first place, rather than just tapping everyone on the shoulder and going, great work, and moving on with life.
I don't think I could have put it better, Maddie. We need to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Cultural growth, cultural difference is one of the things that make this world so beautiful and so diverse and so powerful. And if we're not uncomfortable with one another, then we can't grow. I think you just put it so well. And I've had some wonderful, uncomfortable conversations with staff in this organisation. And we've sat and we've debated, and people have had the opportunity to share their points of view. And I think it's being uncomfortable without the fear of being ostracized because of those views. It's an opportunity to sit with one another and discuss. And even though I may not agree with your point of view, you still have the right to it and the right to actually explore it together. And it's something that we really need to focus on a lot more. And Australia needs to get comfortable with it. We need to just sit with one another and go, oh, this is going to be a yucky conversation, but we're going to grow from it. And you just find so much more respect comes from that. Thanks for your reflection there, guys. What do you guys think that this year's theme, or how do you think it'll impact on Australia's attitude towards NAIDOC and reconciliation, and just, let's say, towards First Nations people in general?
I feel like it'll bring up conversation a lot more, and people get talking about it, the stuff that you were just talking about, the difficult stuff. But it definitely should be recognised and not forgotten. That's how we can move forward. People just like to push it aside and push it under the rug because it's not comfortable to talk about, but it should be talked about. And that's why I think it's so straightforward, always was, always will be. That gets people pushing the conversation. But that's what I feel like we've always wanted, is just to recognise and not forget.
Yeah, it's very much like our fallen soldiers, isn't it? From Anzac.
Yeah.
We have Anzac Day to, number one, remember the atrocities of war. And number two, to recognise that we never want to have those things again. And Sorry Day, Remembrance Day, NAIDOC, these conversations are about us acknowledging the atrocities that took place in the past and ensuring that we don't ever go there again. So really well put. Does anyone else want to add to that conversation? I've got to remember I'm a chair, not a panel.
I would like to, if that's okay.
Go for it.
You know, I really hope that your theme encourages people to listen and reflect on the importance of culture and land and community for us as First Nations people. We've had to fight to keep our culture and our knowledge, our language, land and family lines alive, you know, since colonisation. So, and I think always was, always will be is really timely as well, considering some of the destruction of sacred sites this year that's happened. And I really hope that similar to like what Jack said, it brings conversation and we can have chats why is like these, why sites, why is land, why is earth so important to us, why is culture so important to us, and the continuation of that and the protection of that. And that's what I really you know, really hope that having kind of a spotlight or a limelight on NAIDOC's theme this week, I really hope that brings conversation among my colleagues and among my non-Indigenous friends, and so that there can be more understanding, so that we can have allies in the people that we live with and that we work with. And yeah, and just again back to that like unity point of like, we're stronger when we're unified.
We are so strong when we all do it together. Matt and Patricia, do you have anything you want to add?
Are you right if I jump in, Patricia? Or?
Go for it.
So it's interesting, Amy, when you were saying that, and I might ask for some forgiveness for getting political too there, if that's all right, Patricia. I was picking up what you were saying, Amy, and it was quite funny. Well, not funny, but that was something that Stuart and I were discussing actually, I feel like a month or so ago, Stu, and talking about the contrast that if we ran a bulldozer through a cathedral, you'd have a lot of people who'd be very upset.
Absolutely.
You know, without consent, without permission, without saying, and we drove it through private property and just smashed it all down, so no, we've got to go for this reason, how that would feel, or exhumed graves or whatever that looked like. And I'm sorry if that makes people feel uncomfortable, but that's the stark reality of what happened in the West.
Absolutely.
And I've been up into the Pilbara, and I've been right up into Weipa and the country and the community there, and it's beautiful country. But I guess this is where we're still seeing in this modern age, profit before. So I think it's a great title that we're starting to push this really strongly and go, how do we actually take a pause and reflect and say, if the shoe were on the other foot, what would it feel like? You know, what would it be like? Yeah,
Notre Dame started to burn and people sent millions of dollars over to fix it. Is 500-year-old building. You know, you've got a site that's 120,000 years old.
Absolutely.
It's not just Black history; it's human history.
Yeah.
And
the weight that those sites carry for our people, you know, like, you know, I'm going to stay on the political bandwagon for a second, but the birthing tree in Victoria, like my heart. When that, I just think, you know, if it always wasn't, always will be, we really need to make a stand and a statement as a country to honour and respect the sacred sites and the land that our ancestors really fought for and built and created for us to respect and to look after and to take part in.
And if you look at, again, human history, and it's the way we phrase things, if we are the oldest living culture, and 120,000 years does prove the Outer Africa theory wrong, there's the world's first midwives right there.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, the medical history that's there is amazing. You know, the first feminists are there, women, you know, so those types of things. But I think it's about how we start to reframe things for people to understand it. How do we translate our importance to people as well? And I think it's a two-way street. Our job is to assist with that, and I honestly believe that. And non-Indigenous Australians and all people, it's their job to try and open and listen and learn from one another as well. Patricia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was reflecting on that and thinking, you know what, this has to become a non-political discussion.
Yeah.
Because when issues are politicised, people take sides and you've got right and left and anywhere in between. And this has got to be taken out of the political conversation. I hope that makes sense for people.
100%.
Because it's beyond politics.
Yeah.
It's something that's inherent. It's important for, as you said, Stuart, our humanity. And sometimes these issues should not be politicized. It's like, you know, I don't know if anyone's watched the David Attenborough latest around, you know, what the world will look like in 2050 if we, you know, continue to politicize Mother Earth, you know. And there are some subjects I think that need to not be politicized, and this is one.
Absolutely.
I know that as Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Island people, and as a community, we need to win political battles. But the issue of culture and the issue of heritage and the issue of the importance of this to Australia needs to stop being politicised. It's done, yeah.
So well said. I'm conscious of
That's
time.
what I think, Stu, we can all take a proactive step. So when I was told in 1992, you know, some of you weren't born, that I couldn't be part of this, you know, many of you in this organisation, many of you, and I'm talking to the Aboriginal staff here, taught me differently. You were the ones that taught me differently. And I wanted to be part of it. I had an open heart and an open mind, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing, right? And you taught me how to do this in a way that can help the staff, the community, the culture, and you're still teaching me, right? But imagine collectively, there's what, 300 of us? What collectively we can do. And that's what I love about being part of an organisation, because ultimately you've got a collective that can take this voice forward. So my invitation to everyone is take your voice forward, because this matters. It matters to your, you know, if you've got grandchildren, or like me, or aspiring grandmother one day, you know, it matters. It matters for our generations to come. And we can collectively make a difference.
I totally agree. What's the saying? And I'll get it wrong, but one voice cries out in the night and won't be heard, but many voices will be heard. And it's definitely got that saying wrong, but it was along those lines anyway.
I get them wrong all the time, Stu, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We know what you mean.
We've only got a couple minutes left. I actually, my next question was about was really around, why do we have to wait to NAIDOC or for someone to come out with a slogan for this to happen? You know, and yes, it's about a conversation prompter, but I think it's something that we can consider, and you know, that we work hard with Interrelate. I don't believe we wait until NAIDOC. The conversations are happening all year round in our regions. But so I won't go there, because I've kind of just touched on a little bit. But is there anything, final words that you guys want to say? We have 5 minutes. Any pearls of wisdom or anything that we kind of haven't touched on around this this topic that you want to just finish with?
I'd like to open it to the group, Stu.
Yeah, let's do it.
We've got
That'd be great.
all these amazing people out there. I'd love to hear from them. Even one word, what does it mean to them? Go for it.
Or not all at once. How are we going to do this?
Speak up.
Brooke, I'm sure you've got a word. Do you want to throw a word out there?
Oh, they can't unmute.
They can't unmute.
Oh, well.
Oh, you're going to unmute them, have you?
We've got inclusion and celebration. That's an idea. Why don't we put it in the chat? Katrina's just said you can now unmute, Brooke.
No.
Oh, well, put it in the chat for her.
Maddie has asked, can we do this more often? It's been really helpful. So
Honour and respect. I totally agree. I think if people would find it more helpful, maybe we could organise a small thing once every couple of months and record it, and it can contribute to our education of staff. I think it's a great idea. And now that we have the technology like Zoom and Teams, it shouldn't be a major issue. I think time would be people's major issue, but connection, we've got lovely words coming through. If you celebrate your relationships on Valentine's Day, I missed that one.
If you only celebrate your relationship on Valentine's Day, you aren't celebrating love, and celebrating Black culture should be the same. That's from Brooke.
I love that.
Yeah.
Can I steal that? I will acknowledge that it always was and always will be your statement. Recognition. I think I'll give a small analogy, but I always use this watch analogy of, you know, when you look at a culture that was around for so long and had all this connection and history and, you know, just this wonderful system in place, and this beast that we call colonialism came along and took that watch and smashed it with a hammer, and it took seconds, 3 generations to kind of pull apart that culture. It's gonna take a really long time to pick up all the pieces of that watch and put it back together.
Yeah.
And often I get, well, I didn't make the issue, so why do I have to deal with it? And I often say, well, I'm sitting here with the bits of watch, regardless of whether I smashed it or not. And my children are going to sit with bits of the watch, whether they smashed it or not.
Yeah.
We all reap the benefits of our forefathers and foremothers. And so it's all of our jobs to get those bits of watch and to contribute to put them back together. You know, it's all about heritage. And so that's something for me to always really focus on, is how do I get a bit and assist whoever it is to actually put their bit of watch back in place.
We might not be, I got unmuted, sucked in. we might not be, you know, necessarily responsible for the history of our ancestors, our non-Aboriginal colonial ancestors, but we are benefiting from the things that happened to our people. So if you live on Aboriginal land, regardless of whether you are responsible for your great-great-grandmother and what she did when she came here, you do benefit from it. So we want, like Amy said, we want allies, we want accomplices. Like you said, Stu, with the pieces of watch. Like, you might not have to say, like, I killed this person or I put this person into slavery. You might not have done it, but we do benefit from those things in that colonial history. So let's build that accomplice thing. And like Patricia said, not political, it's human rights. Like, it's got nothing to do with left and right. It's got to do with like preserving culture and making sure that people stop dying. Like, let's just, you know, back each other. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I'll mute again. Bye.
Well said, Brooke. I thought you would be sitting there writing notes, actually, and I'll get an essay later on as to all the things I should have said. So,
And it really actually wasn't that long ago when all this happened, the stolen generation. I have family members still alive today that were in it. So it's not, people tend to think that it happened a long time ago. It's got nothing to do with us and stuff. It really does.
Yeah.
If we come together, and that's how we can push forward.
I mean, the interesting thing is Linda's made a comment there about Aboriginal people being consulted in relation to the recent fires. And that's just a prime example of the knowledge that is held about this land and how it needs to be treated and how it needs to be looked after. And when you don't listen to it, then what happens? So even though the world is changing environmentally, but still that knowledge base is so crucial to maintaining its health.
Yeah.
And likewise, there are, as you said, Stu, there's lots of things that we can learn from in terms of medicine and food and a whole variety of different things that we are stealing ourselves from it by not being open to it.
Even dietitians nowadays are saying, oh, you need to eat the way you live traditionally, you know, grazing, doing this, doing that, you know, like it's stuff that's healthier for our bodies and our spirits and our minds, you know, and there's so much knowledge there. And I think we're embarking on that journey, and I really love where we're at with Interrelate, and I'm loving all the words that are coming through, and I thank everyone so much for that. We are out of time. So I can't thank you all enough for making the time to get onto this panel. Thank you, our panelists. If we can, we won't be able to do a unmuted clap, but thank you guys for being brave enough to jump on and assisting me in pulling this together. I think it was really valuable and so important that we hear our voices, but a unified approach. It's why we've got our non-Indigenous and Indigenous staff here working together and part of this conversation, this panel, because it's really important. You may end up being put on YouTube or something, just to let you know, because this is good stuff. This is gold. So thank you so much.
Thank you for letting our voices be heard.
Yeah.
It's really important for us, or for me anyway. It's very important.
My pleasure. I think we'll have more and more of this as we go on. Well, everyone have a wonderful NAIDOC week. Please take the time to have an uncomfortable conversation. You know, find some staff. If anyone ever wants to contact myself, and I know the Catania staff and our First Nation staff are very open, but please have those conversations, because the wealth of knowledge that's here is amazing. And I have no doubt that it'll be a two-way street. You know, we have so much to learn from everyone else. And I think really NAIDOC is a platform, but for us to start looking at diversity on a whole, because if we don't think diverse, we never get diversity. So how do we start broadening those views out to our cold brothers and sisters, our LGBTQI brothers and sisters, and actually really starting to diversify our minds and our thoughts and being humble in those uncomfortable conversations. So I would finish by saying, Yana munyana, nubari mari, interrelate nura. Yana, until we see you again, big love to everyone from our Interrelate camp.